Hey guys, we'll try this again. I'm not sure if my mic was off. I think maybe my mic was off, but I think also far worse is that I had a crash. So briefly recapping because I'm just going to delete the other video. So thank you. Please keep asking your questions. And then super quick, I took a viewer question, which is how do you gear out Satalia? How do you gear out Lady and Beast? So just hopping right the hell back into it, forget, rest of introduction. So we first took a look at Satalia's skills. She's got the skills Life Absorb and Soul Absorb. Both of them rely heavily on accuracy. So we're going to keep that in mind when we start to build her out, is that she needs accuracy. As we go through this, she's not like other tanks, unfortunately, in that she's not like a Rogers, right? In a Rogers or an Elf, they don't actually need any accuracy to actually get the job done. They just need to last. And as they last, overall, they will whittle down slots just through their passive skills. Satalia doesn't have that capability. Satalia must actually hit. She has nothing going for her that will help stack the deck in her favor if she doesn't hit. If you were to go into battle with a Satalia that doesn't have enough accuracy to hit and didn't have any gem sets, then it would just be like watching a slow train crash, unfortunately. So her Soul Absorb skill will gain her extra attack, which will feed into the Life Absorb skill, which increases the HP that she would recover. So she is one of these comms that so she is, number one, she's a tank. Number two, she needs to hit as a tank. And number three, she gets stronger as a tank as the fight goes on, rather than starting out at her full strength, which is okay as long as you do tank appropriately and, then you will be able to last those first few rounds until what you need to get done actually gets done, which is you need to be able to proc Soul Absorb to gain some attack and reduce it from the enemy. So as we go through the different pieces of gear, we're going to be looking specifically at pieces of gear that give her accuracy over attack. That's more important here. Although it is important to point out that her skills, is a buff and a debuff. So when she does actual damage, the question is, it's her method of doing damage, can it crit? And therefore, are you concerned about, should you start to look at stacking crit damage bonus? And yes, the only way that she could do damage is her normal attack, and that can crit. So we can look at it we can look at stacking some crit damage buff. However, in almost all cases where you can stack crit damage buff, you have another option to stack accuracy, and that will probably do us better because she just really relies so much on actually hitting. So it's super easy for me. I mean, the story comes out right away and tells me that I need Mini Death Star. Mini Death Star is the biggest accuracy buff or the biggest gear that adds to accuracy in the game, so I can't pass that up. When it comes to weapons, it would look like you have a little bit more freedom here. Normally most builds, normally you run Titans. And if you don't have Titans, you run Apocalyptors. I'm going to say here that while accuracy is so important for a Satalia, while I wouldn't start stacking, say, Dirges on her, because remember, Dirge is the base accuracy of a weapon type in the game, I would consider Skywalkers or Apocalyptors, depending on who you're going up against. Now, if you start to stack a lot of pure hit skills from gems, then you could look at using Apocalyptors. However, with my gut, the way that you want to go here, because remember, she is a tank, so you do want to be able to tank, and you want to be able to rely on the fact that you will tank. I am going to rely on the fact that Soul Absorb will proc enough of the time, because it is a 60% skill, that instead of going for Apocalyptors here, while I wouldn't go for dirges, I would absolutely go for 2 Skywalkers on her. And I would look at putting accuracy gems into the Skywalker slots for the extra stats. And you could do, and when we get into gems, we'll get into this a little bit more. On her Walker gem, if you put in a Walker gem on the headpiece, you could use accuracy there as well. I can't understate how important accuracy is for her. Now, here you can go ahead and use Ashura, or you could go ahead and use an Invincible. And I think that the Invincible is probably going to be more of the like conventional piece here. But this is really up to you. For her pants, I would go towards, where is it? I would go towards the old Voltars. I feel like that's going to be your best bet. If you need more damage and you're hitting, I would first change the weapons to Apocalyptors rather than change the Voltar to something like a, say, Magwell Pants. Yes, it's super duper important, like, to do damage, but her story is not damage. Her story is lasting. She wants to last long enough to reduce the enemy's attack and start to spin up some attack for herself. That's generally the reason. Like, look, I wouldn't go. I think that the other thing that people might think of to go, and I'm just trying to figure this out in my head, is I think that people might consider going Natural Whisper on her because it reduces enemy damage, and you could do that. But I wouldn't do that if you can't hit. And the problem with Natural Whisper is it reduces her accuracy. You would have to really stack a lot of accuracy in other areas. And in fact, if you put away the Skywalkers and you run with dirges on her, then I would say that you could look at running Natural Whisper. And that might be a serious consideration for you. It would have to be very, very, very high level, however. And if you did that Natural Whisper, then of course you would want to double down on that by going Shura. So I would say you've got really 2 options for builds here. You could go your mini Death Star Skywalkers, Invincible, and Voltars, or you could go for the Natural Whisper, throw on 2 dirges, to make up that accuracy, and you'll use a lot of accuracy gems there. Go for Shura in order to double down on the crit with her, and there you go. I would say that that would be your more specialized tank set. Besides, I don't think that she's going to really enter the meta as hard as, like, we thought that she was going to unseat Elf. She's not going to unseat Elf. You could tell just by looking at her. She just relies far, far too much on actually hitting. And it's so easy to stack a lot of damage with Commander Awakening these days. So I don't think we will see the places where you see tanks in general are major marches in Galactic Battle, or you see them on server during kill event with like small tiers, say T2. I think that her application is more going to be during kill event for T2, but honestly, you have better comms for that. So Satalia, while she's very interesting, and she could, in future days, really inhabit part of the disable meta, and we'll get into roles later, I really don't see her as being an everyday comm. That's Satalia. Let's take a look at LB, Lady and Beast. Okay, Lady and Beast. Now that we've gotten over our technical difficulties. So, Lady and Beast, I don't actually have her. I'll have to apologize. You'll have to accept my apology here, but I do know her. So, Time Bombs, we're backing up a sec. We're going to look at the skills first, right? So, Time Bombs, 20% chance to trigger before next action. During the next action of the target of this attack, a number will die, equal to active air's 1% of units. Damage dealt this way cannot exceed 300% of normal attack damage. So this kills units directly. It happens so you proc this, then you have your normal attack. Assuming you didn't kill the slot, right? Then when the enemy's the target of that slot goes, then they will use a bunch of units. So it sounds like it's like Curse for Elf. And you have a cap here. Your cap is 300% of normal attack damage, so she can't kill more units then 3 times her normal attack damage, which, keep in mind, we're not talking about critting here. This always hits, though, so, like, you don't have to worry about accuracy on this one, which is nice. And that's 20%. I mean, look, it's not going to be a deciding factor for you at 20. But it's nice to have. I mean, better than Satalia that doesn't have any skills that you can't worry about accuracy with, right? Destructive power, this is an 80% chance to trigger. I know it's not written here, but we know that it's an 80% chance to trigger. If this normal attack is dodged, target is dealt damage again, which cannot miss. I think it skews at, is it like 3% per level? I'm not sure offhand, I apologize, but the important thing here is that this is very much like King, where she's got, instead of King has a 100% chance to trigger his, she's got 80% chance to trigger. Either one of 2 things happen. Either she hits because her accuracy roll is not met or exceeded by the dodge roll, and then she hits, right? And she does whatever her regular damage would be, including crit. It's 5 times per level. Thank you. 5% per level. So that's fine. If she doesn't actually hit, then what happens is it deals direct damage, which again cannot crit. She's an anti-dodge comm, just like King. She's the air anti-dodge comm, which is great because an 80% chance to trigger is so high, you do not need accuracy on her at all. In fact, you do not want to hit, right? You don't want to start spending all that accuracy to try and hit when you could just do, while it's not a critical hit, you could just do more than a regular hit by not actually having enough accuracy. So we'll just use Satalia for the time being, but so her role is pretty clear. Her role is to take care of dodge comms. Her role is to take care of comms like Gilly, right? Where Gilly usually stacks a ton of dodge. So for Lady and Beast, we know that we do not need accuracy. However, the damage that she deals, while it's direct damage, it is based off of, or capped, in the case of the second skill, or capped by her attack in the case of the first skill. So really, we know that we're going to need some attack on Lady and Beast, and that's going to be super important to us. For that reason, I go Devastation Helmet. Anytime you need attack, I mean, in general, look, the headpieces are very powerful in this game. The pants pieces in this game are generally the thing that you swap around. They're more like the Swiss Army knife of the set. And usually the weapons just kind of are just reinforcement for whichever way the head is going. That's like some commander/gear theory, but in general what we find is that like your best bang for buck on upgrading equipment generally goes to the headpiece, because the headpiece has larger values much of the time than when we compare it to other pieces, especially when we compare it to feet pieces, to pants. That's what they're called. They're called pants. So we would go, oh, I'm not going to bind this in front of you. What's the reason for that? There's no reason for that. We're going to go damage gear, right? So we're going to go Titans. Anytime we hear damage gear, I hear Titans. Let's skip the chest for a moment. Then when I am looking at pants pieces, look, the point of an anti-dodge comm, there's 2 things that they need to do. They need to last long enough in order to kill enough stacks to make it easy to knock out the dodge comm. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, of course, that they need to actually survive long enough to do that kind of a damage. So survivability is important, but to a point. I would see there's a few things that you could do here for a Lady and Beast, honestly. While yes, you could use Madrigal on her, she's really not in a situation where extra crit damage buff helps her, because neither of her attacks optimally actually could crit. So I wouldn't throw Madrigal on her. And of course, accuracy is the last thing that you want to put on her, right? You want to miss. I would say in order to do damage, you go Overlord. In order to be able to take a hit a little bit more, then you would go for your Fearless there. And, you know, it's actually kind of great to see for this kind of an for this kind of an application that we actually have Overlord, because Overlord is so new. And then, of course, when it comes to your chest piece, this is about survivability. You will know when you're deploying Lady and Beast what you're deploying her against. In general, if you're using her, like, say, in a capital to kick people out of a capital that are dodgers, then you'll go into it knowing it. The other application is using her more as, like, a main comm, or using her more, like, during the week for kill event, weekend for kill event and things like that. And if you were going that path as just, like, a general purpose comm, then I would take this Overlord out of the equation, and then I would go for, your Fearless. But if you're using her in an aggressive, like, one-time use to pop someone out of a capital, then I would go for Overlord. So the same thing kind of goes for your chest pieces. If she's going to be like if Lady and Beast is going to be more of a main comm for you, then you're going to want to look at things like Shadow or Creator. But if you're using her to kind of like kick someone out of a capital, and they're a dodge comm, and they don't have an anti-defense skill, then I would honestly look at Armor of the Tyrant for her. I think that's going to be your best, like, one-time use for her. Just, you know, be careful and be on the lookout for people who are using ignore defense skills or the Leo set, right? So again, we've got basically two for Lady and Beast. I realize I'm up on Satalia, but here we've got basically two loadouts, right? We've got the loadout, which is to use her in order to kick dodgers out of a strategic location, and for that I would go Dev Helmet, 2 Titans, a Tyrant, and Overlord. And if you were using her more as a main, then I would say, Then I would say throw on Fearless, get rid of the Overlord, throw on Shadow, you know, get rid of that Tyrant, or you could, of course, use a Creator. All right, guys. I think we're gonna stop the stream right over here. But if we got a question from Zero Cool. Sorry about that. Is there a piece of gear that drops accuracy so Lady and Beast's destructive power skill can benefit from? Yes, there is. There is one. There's a piece. There's number one, there's Natural Whisper. Yeah, you could throw that on Lady Beast if you want. That's totally fine. And actually, it might be great for you. But the problem with using, you might look at this and go, oh, Natural Whisper is wonderful for Lady and the Beast because it gives her crit wither, and that makes her a little bit tankier, and it takes away accuracy. But you're going to lose too much attack by taking out Dev Helmet. So, unfortunately, I would not recommend going for Natural Whisper. The other piece is the AI Zero, which I don't have because the AI Zero is a pile of junk. Don't use the AI Zero because, again, like, what AI Zero does is it's like a base 25 or something Thalamus Booster 3, something like that. So it gives you some dodge, like a shitty amount of dodge compared to other options we have, and then it takes away some accuracy. You don't start stacking gear. I'm going to say this is a generalization coming up. Don't stack gear for the negative stats. Stack gear for the positive stats. You don't have to worry about like reducing your accuracy. People will naturally increase their dodge by playing into either the dodge meta or by playing into research. They will gain dodge over time. All you need to worry about is just, like, don't stick on plus accuracy pieces, and then you'll be fine with Lady and Beast. But the problem is that when you start looking at running things like Natural Whisper on Lady and Beast, and you start looking at things like AI Zero in order to reduce accuracy, the problem is what you're giving up in exchange for that. And giving up a Devastation Helmet is just no bueno. I want to thank you guys for coming out here this evening. I do apologize for the technical difficulties. I will be deleting the false started the full start stream before this. But again, I do want to thank from the bottom of my heart the engagement from the community in supporting this knowledge-based endeavor that Seraphim is going down. And if you are interested, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will put you in touch with one of our recruiters. And please keep sending me your questions. Post them in the comment section of the video. DM them to me online or on Discord, or at me in a channel or whatever, and I'll shove it on the pile. And we'll keep going down this journey together as we unlock the relationship between stats, gear, and skills, and how they interact together. See you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Bye-bye.